Ladies and gentlemen, it's 7:30. I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is our regularly scheduled council meeting for Monday, February 23rd. Start with the roll.
Ames.
Here.
Gray.
Here.
Neal.
Here.
Patrick.
Here.
Kroll.
Here.
Showman. Tatman. Here. Trutchell. Here.
Okay, would you rise with me, please, and pledge allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. I trust that the council members have had an opportunity to review. Are there any edits or corrections, or do we have a motion to approve as presented? Mrs. Ames makes a motion to approve, second by Mrs. Gray. Roll call?
Ames.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Neal.
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
Kroll.
Yes.
Tatman.
Yes.
Trutchell.
Yes.
And the motion is carried. Next on the agenda is reports of committees. Mrs. Patrick.
Thank you. The Utilities Committee has one item on tonight's agenda. It's item number 2, and it's the first reading of an ordinance accepting and appropriating $24,581.12 insurance check for the replacement and installation of a traffic signal controller that was damaged in an auto accident. This intersection was the intersection of Sini Road and Bridge Street. It happened October 29th, 2014. The check from the driver's insurance company includes $21,900 for the controller and $2,689.12 for the lagger to install a new one. There's no additional cost to the city. The insurance check is paying for everything. Since the new controller cannot be ordered until this check is deposited and appropriated at the appropriate time, I will motion to waive the 3-read rule and pass this tonight. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Patrick. Other reports? Mr. Trutchell.
Thank you, Mrs. Alenardo. The Parks and Recreation Committee has one item on tonight's agenda. It's the first reading of an ordinance to authorize the city auditor to move the municipal swimming pool department from the general fund to the recreation fund. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Trutchell. Mrs. Gray.
Thank you, President Alenardo. The Human Resources Committee has met, and there are a number of items that have been assigned to the HR Committee and are currently with the Law Director's Office. The only item this evening that we have on the agenda is item number one, which is the first reading on ordinance to appropriate $48,000 to fund the EEO administrator for the remainder of calendar year 2015. And I know that this is a rather contentious piece of legislation, but in order to make sure that we have addressed it and that council remains true to its word, I will ask to waive the 3-read rule this evening.
Thank you, Mrs. Gray.
Thank you.
Mrs. Ames.
Thank you, President Alenardo. Development has no items on the agenda tonight. However, I'd like to report on assignment 14-167, request to accept a land donation in Yaphanchi Park from the Litter family. A committee meeting was held on this assignment. At the meeting, there were concerns with costs such as remediation and demolition associated with accepting this gift. After these concerns were raised, the Litter family withdrew their offer, and so this assignment has been taken out of committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Other committee reports? Seeing none, we'll move to reports from officials. Mayor Everson.
Thank you, President Alenardo. Transit currently has a void in the director's position, and we are working through that. We have been interviewing some management companies to come in and give some guidance and bring us up to administrative current status with our grant work and our other issues that we have coming up. We have selected RLS to do the management work, and we'll be signing a contract with them coming up. This has been discussed in our transition phases in our planning. Julie Schaefer, who guided us through the part where Melissa Gibbons took over, will be the person in charge of that, and we look forward to having that done. It's timely too, because first quarter reports are nearing their due dates. That'll be for a period of 180 days, and she will be there 3 days a week. We'll be currently searching for a new director during that time. Secondly, there's going to be a drug summit at the Open Door Church on March the 10th. That's to discuss various forms of treatment and ways that the community of faith can get involved in the fight against the drug problem, particularly with heroin. Tom Thompson will be in attendance of that, who is the director at the treatment facility called The Refuge. Very prominently the most successful form of treatment out there that there is currently. So that again is on March the 10th, and that starts at 10 o'clock. There will also be a sergeant, captain, and chief exams for the police department on March 31st at 10 a.m. at the transit facility. And then lastly, I'd like to ask for council support on item 1 and also item 2 of tonight's agenda, and that concludes my report.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Feeney?
Thank you, President Leonardo. I'll touch on a couple things here. On the agenda for this evening, item number 3, which is the moving of the swimming pool from the general fund to the Parks and Recreation Fund. The Law Director's Office did a nice job of sort of reining this request in. It's a little more complicated than it looked on its face. I just want to point out a couple things now that it's drafted, that the effect that it will have. In essence, we're taking the swimming pool out of the general fund, so all revenue and expense associated with the swimming pool will go into recreation. It will be a separate department within recreation, just like it was under the general fund. Over the years, there were a couple ordinances that changed the way certain money was received. One of those being the receipt of rental fees for shelters. Half of those were diverted to the general fund. Bringing the pool into Parks and Recreation, now into the Recreation Fund, ceases the need for that money to be diverted to the general fund. So that splitting of the rental fees will now stop, and it won't go to the general fund anymore. As it's drafted here, you'll see that in section 5 that it still has 1/2 of those rental fees going toward the pool, but they will stay within the recreation department and the pool, the recreation fund and the pool department. Likewise, there was an ordinance that I believe the goal was to make sure that when money was donated to the pool, that it wasn't quote-unquote lost within the general fund. And so that ordinance is no longer necessary, because now a donation to recreation will divert the money directly to the pool. Also unnecessary now. And I don't think there's really the need to waive the pre-read rule on this or anything like that, so if there's questions along the way, please feel free to ask me. But again, one of the more complicated ordinances we've dealt with recently in terms of tracking down other ordinances that might change. So a nice job to the Law Director's Office. I did want to report on our recent bond rating. As you know, we are bonding out basically the last of our remaining short-term debt. That is the debt related to the Adena Regional Medical Center and the garbage trucks. I passed out to council the Moody's published rating, which kept us at a rating of A2, which is good. It's an interesting report, kind of go through and see what Moody's looks for, the kind of metrics they use to assess economic viability. A couple of things that I would point out that I think we should all just be aware of. One of them is they had me look up the percentage of income tax that various employers make up in the city. They said that generally speaking, a metric of 5% or less is healthy, because if one of those employers were to go out of business, 5% is manageable. Gladfelter represents over 13% of our municipal income tax, and the hospital is 6%. So those two employers combine approximately 20%, which is not insignificant. But take a look at this, and if you have any questions about the rating or the process, again, please feel free to ask. Finally, I have a committee assignment in place. I have made a recommendation on our software, and the committee assignment request came with that written recommendation. It might be worth a finance committee meeting to discuss, but we are, I think, getting close to the end of a very long road, and I'm looking forward to moving forward with that project. Nothing else, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Field. Mrs. Rutherford.
Thank you, President Leonardo. I don't have anything to report to council this evening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. As president, I would like to report that I've received a request from Paul Pollard, president of the Majestic Theater Board, stating that Emily Schmidt has resigned her board position due to scheduling conflicts. Mr. Pollard had requested that Bob Etling be appointed to the board vacancy, as Mr. Etling has been serving as an at-large member and has been active in helping the Majestic Theater work toward their long-term goals. So at this time, I would ask if a council member would make a motion to accept my appointment to that board. Thank you, Mr. Trudgell. Is there a second? I saw Mr. Pearl's hand. And now we'll have a roll call on the motion.
Ames.
Yes?
Gray.
Yes.
Neal.
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
Kroll.
Yes.
Tatman.
Yes.
Trutchell.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion is approved, and I thank you for that. Next on our agenda is audience participation. Just a reminder that when you step to the microphone, we'd like you to give your name and address. Council rule limits each speaker to 5 minutes and each subject to 15. Who would like to address council this evening? Really? Okay. All right, so that moves us to old business. Is there any old business to report? Yes?
I would just like to comment on item number 1, and I just want to let everyone know that I will not support waiving the 3-read rule for appropriating the additional money to fund the EEO position for the rest of the year. This is not an emergency situation, as there is enough money appropriated to fund the EEO through May. In my mind, waiving the rules to rush this through says that the EEO position is more important than a laid-off police officer. And besides this, the public is always complaining that we waive the rules too often. As much as I hate to admit it, I believe the mayor when he told me and the other council members that he was eliminating the position due to the lack of funds. He also said he would stand firm on this decision. Back in November, when the mayor announced this at the finance meeting, I was looking at all the numbers. Cutting back on police and fire positions was done first, but we were still short of our projected carryover of $750,000. Remember, we were and still are in fiscal caution with the state of Ohio. Our carryover needs to be $1,300,000. This is why I didn't question the elimination of the EEO position. It was just trying to get the budget to where it needed to be so we would have the projected $750,000 carryover. The next thing I know, the mayor is stating that our carryover is more than we anticipated, so he was going to fund the EEO position. How can our carryover be too high? We are still $450,000 short from where the state says we must be. And if there is extra carryover, what about recalling the laid-off police officer? At the last council meeting, when the members of the community spoke during audience participation and thanked the mayor for reinstating this position, I about fell off my chair. In short, it has been the actions of the mayor that has caused this mess with the EEO position, not council. Council will do what it needs to do to reinstate the EEO position, but council should not be blamed for the decisions that were made and they were beyond our control. When this legislation does come for a vote, I will vote yes. But my yes vote is not because I want to put the EEO position ahead of the police and fire. My vote will be yes because looking at the numbers, it would be cheaper for the city to fund the EEO position for 2015 than it would to try and defend a lawsuit that the city would lose, especially when the mayor says we have extra money. The EEO position is great if you have the money and can afford it, but simply put, the positions, which position serves more of the public, EEO or 911? But as I said, I'm not against the position. I will vote for it when the time comes, but I cannot support waiving the 3-read rule.
Thank you, Mrs. Pack. Other old business? Mr. Kroll.
I will also like to speak to item number 1, and Councilwoman Patrick made a lot of good points. I do want to point out, though, that I will support waiving of the 3-read rule, simply for the fact that, if nothing else, this is a paperwork at this point. The position has been reinstated. We are going to appropriate this money sooner or later, regardless. Waiting to fund this doesn't accomplish anything towards the goals that we all would like to see, which would be more police and more fire. This is something that has been valued and expressed. The value of that has been expressed by the public, and I think that we need to get behind this and fund this position. Waiving the 3-read rule simply does what we will be doing sooner or later anyway. I don't think there is any member of council that is against complying with this, so I will support waiving it tonight and moving on past this. So.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Kroll. Mr. Trudgeon.
I have a question. First of all, we have 7 council members here tonight, and officially that's what we have. Now, how many votes do we have to pass waiving the 3-read rule tonight? Mr. Fossum, do you know that?
It's all 7, and as I understand it.
We need all 7, whether or not we have 7 official members or not?
It's 7 of the elected. You need 7 of the elected or the positions. The fact that there are vacancies doesn't reduce that requirement under state law. As I understand it.
Mrs. Ames.
And I have a question along that vein. Has there been an official resignation by Mr. Shulman, been received by the clerk or by the president of council?
I honestly still have not received Mr. Bonner's. I saw his email, but I've not received his
So you haven't really
resignation.
received from either one of them then?
Did you get the email from Mr. Sheldon?
I saw his email that it was effective as of tomorrow, the 24th.
That's the 23rd.
Today's the 23rd. The only email I saw from Mr. Showman was effective the 24th.
Other old business? Yes, ma'am.
Related to that, do we need to excuse Mr. Showman because he's still technically, and the same thing goes for Mr. Bonner, they're both still technically on our, do we need to excuse them? What's the point of order for that?
Frankly, I would say, as a matter of courtesy, Mr. Showman should be excused because he did say his date of resignation is tomorrow. Mr. Bonner, I don't think it matters because he set his date of resignation prior to this meeting. And it wouldn't matter as to him because I don't think he would be entitled to pay for council service either way.
So I make a motion to excuse Mr. Showman, his absence this evening.
Motion has been made. Is there a second? Second by Mrs. Ames. Roll call.
Ames.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Neal.
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
Kroll.
Yes.
Tatman.
Yes.
Trutchell.
Yes.
Is there additional old business before we move on? Mr.
I
Trudgeon.
didn't quite get to finish.
Okay.
I am going to support waiving the 3-read rule, only because I don't want to see the person that is now in the EEO position on, off, back and forth. I think we need to go ahead and put this on and pass it tonight, get it out of the way, rather than fooling around with this for another 3 council sessions, another 2 more council sessions. So I support passing it tonight, only because of jockeying back and forth. I will not support it next year when the budget comes up.
Thank you. Other old business? All right. Then we'll move to petitions and correspondence received by the clerk.
Madam President, I have nothing new to report tonight.
Thank you. Is there new business to address? Seeing none, then we will move to committee assignments and meeting dates. I have passed out a summary of the assignments that I have prepared since our last meeting. There were 3 additional assignments, 1517, 1518, and 1519, that were handed in hard copy they were all Finance Committee, and they were handed to Mr. Tretchell when he came in. So the reporting dates for those assignments obviously will be March 9 and March 23rd. Additional comments about assignments? All right, then that takes us to legislation. Item 1.
First reading of an ordinance appropriating the amount of $48,000 to fund the EEO administrator position for the remainder of calendar year 2015 and declare an emergency. First reading.
Mrs. Gray.
President Leonardo. I respectfully request that we waive the 3-read rule for this piece of legislation.
Is there a second? Mr. Pearl. Roll call on the motion to waive the 3-read rule.
Yes.
Ames. Gray.
Yes.
Neal.
Yes.
Patrick.
No.
Kroll.
Yes.
Tatman.
Yes.
Trutchell.
Yes.
Requiring 7 votes, the motion fails. And we move on to item 2.
First reading of an ordinance accepting and appropriating an insurance reimbursement check in the amount of $24,589.12 for the replacement and installation of a traffic signal controller which was damaged as the result of an auto accident within the city, and declaring an emergency. First reading.
Mrs. Patrick.
I'd like to make a motion to waive the 3-read rule.
Is there a second? Mrs. Ames. Roll call on the motion to waive the 3-read.
Ames.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Neal.
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
Kroll.
Yes.
Tatman.
Yes.
Trutchell.
Yes.
Motion to waive the 3-read rule is approved. And now we'll have roll call on the ordinance.
Ames.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Neal.
Yes.
Patrick.
Yes.
Kroll.
Yes.
Tatman.
Yes.
Trutchell.
Yes.
And the motion is approved. And item number 3.
First reading of an ordinance authorizing the city auditor to move the municipal swimming pool department from the general fund to the recreation fund, and directing that all amounts currently appropriated in said department be transferred to the new recreation fund municipal swimming pool department. First reading.
That completes legislation for this evening. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Mrs. Gray. Second by Mrs. Ames. Roll call on the motion to adjourn.
Ames.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Neal. Patrick. Kroll.
Yes.
Tatman.
Yes.
Trutchell.
Yes.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much.